Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, today is the 12th day of April, 3 days until tax day. And as such, I was driving around listening to the radio the other day, or yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I heard Peter Franchot, Maryland State Comptroller, talking about the pile of thousands of fraudulent tax returns on his desk and why he couldn't do anything about that. And I hadn't heard anything about it. I wasn't able to find much online about it. So I thought, hey, wait a second. I have a radio show. I can talk to the man himself. And he joins us now on the phone. How are you, Comptroller?
Derek, I'm fabulous, and I'm actually even better because the O's are having such a great start to the season, and that's always good for the economy.
Yeah, do you have any official authority to just declare the Major League Baseball season over right now and start the playoffs?
Yeah, that would be terrific, and but what fun that no matter how upside down the world seems, we've got baseball to always come back to.
Yes, we do have that, and it's nice to have that escape back again. But the problem with escapes is you're escaping from something. And yesterday I heard you talking about it was either 4,000 or 40,000 fraudulent. I mean, not just wrong, but fraudulent, meaning submitted under somebody else's name on somebody else's behalf in an attempt to steal their returns, tax returns sitting on your desk. Is that an accurate number?
Correct. Actually, it's 50,000 fraudulent returns. And these are returns that we know are fraudulent, Derek, because we have our fraud detection software has identified them and pulled them out of the queue. So we did not send them the refunds, and we're saving the taxpayers anywhere from $50 to $60 million.
How do you determine what does the software look for? Is it just fake addresses, bad signatures?
That is a state secret.
Oh, okay. But 50,000 of them.
Yeah, it's a huge number. It's 20,000 from last year, a calendar year, 30,000 this calendar year. We're having, actually, knock on wood, a pretty smooth tax season. We've processed more than 2 million returns as we speak. You're right, next Monday is the 18th is the deadline. But we've returned over $1.5 billion in lawful refunds to Maryland families. That's a huge shot in the arm for our economy.
Yes, it is.
But we have this very sophisticated software that's able to detect fraudulent returns and pull them out of the line.
Now, describe a fraudulent return. It's not somebody that's essentially somebody stealing your identity and trying to pretend to be you, filing all complete false numbers in the hopes of the state just sends them a check and then they disappear into the ether while the real person is on the hook.
Correct. Everyone's read about the hacks into corporate financial databases and government agencies and all of these theft of individuals' financial information, their information. Well, these thieves that hack into these corporations and agencies sell that information on the black market. Other thieves use it to process fraudulent tax refund requests, and our software that we use is pretty sophisticated, but I cannot emphasize that the criminals are even more sophisticated than we are, more brazen than we are, and they're constantly getting in front of the lawful taxpayer and getting their refund by pretending that they are the Maryland citizen. So the Maryland citizen goes and applies for their refund, and we have to tell them, oh, somebody else already got it, i.e., we thought it was you.
And
that's
so
that's a bad deal.
How can Marylanders protect themselves?
Well, any Marylander that's been informed by anybody, the federal government or a company, that their financial information has been hacked into, they should get an ID number with the IRS and also register with us, because we will then, instead of electronically processing their returns, we will do it manually and make sure that they are the right person. The problem with that, Derek, is recently the IRS had all their so-called PIN numbers hacked into. So it's just the Wild West right now. We asked the legislature to give us some additional legal tools to actually prosecute the people that are responsible for this. And we put in legislation that everybody said was model legislation for the country. It passed the House of Delegates with only one negative vote. never made it out of the Senate.
Why is that? Because that seems to me to be, the legislative equivalent of a tap and putt. This is protect. This isn't. There's no partisanship to this. There's no, this is the Republican side and this is the Democratic side. This one is one of the rare issues that seems pretty black and white. You're trying to combat fraud and protect innocent Marylanders.
Well, as I said at the beginning, I have 50,000 fraudulent returns sitting on my desk. I have no subpoena power. I have no investigatory powers as far as those fraudulent returns that are sitting in front of me. I asked the legislature to give me the minimum powers that I have, for example, regulating alcohol, tobacco, and petroleum. I have these powers in my sworn law enforcement officers. I don't mean to get down in the weeds with your listeners, but the legislation would not have cost the taxpayers a red cent. It would have protected the state of Maryland from a tremendous amount of fraud. And, they said no, I guess. Who knows? Someone will have to go and ask them. They said no. And as a result, I'm going to have to keep fighting with one hand behind my back. I'm still pretty good, and we're holding our own, but it's not easy, and we regret that the Taxpayer Protection Act was headed off and defeated for absolutely inexplicable reasons.
It's unbelievable to me when I heard you say that yesterday. My jaw dropped. Like, this is...
Get this, it gets worse. One of the chairmen over there I said, what's the problem with the bill? It's taking so long to get it through. He said, I've gotten a phone call from someone who thinks that the bill is a bad idea. And I said, really? He said, yeah, why don't you call the person? He's a CPA. You can hear straight from him. And I took it back, the phone slip, and showed the name and the phone number to my staff, and they said that's one of the people we would like to indict for tax fraud. So who's running the place down there? I don't know, but if they didn't pass the bill, maybe we can get it through next year. But in the interim, we're going to have to fight with one hand behind our back and do the best we can. And I promise everybody in the state that nobody is going to be a fiercer defender of the tax situation in Maryland and trying to head off this fraud than me. But boy, I wish I had that, legislation
right.
that was just a no-brainer. But hey, it's the legislature.
So you got 50,000 fraudulent returns. Even if you have the best software set up, some get through still, right?
I would hate to admit that, but sure, some gets through. The federal level, there's a huge amount that gets through.
Right.
And yeah, there's some that probably gets through. We don't have a number there because obviously we don't know if we knew who they were, we would stop it and it'd be part of our count. But 50,000 returns over 2 years that are clearly fraudulent, that's a lot.
And you have faith that even without, you knew the one person who'd called it and complained to that member that was somebody you wanted to talk to. You think you have faith in the ability to find these people and prosecute them with these minimal tools? Yeah,
but we need to have, we can't fight these guys with, it's basically both hands tied behind my back. Can you imagine, for example, these tax preparers that have been shutting down because the returns they're filing are highly questionable? I don't have the power to subpoena their records. I have to go and ask them to voluntarily turn over their records. So the ones that are criminal, you can imagine what they say to me when I walk in the door.
Right.
Geez, boy, are you naive? And, so I don't have subpoena power, so I have to do the best I can. And the Attorney General and I announced 9 indictments from a couple of weeks ago, and that was for incidents that occurred several years ago. But since then, it's just gotten more brazen, more sophisticated, more of a problem. It's happening to every state around the country, and I asked for minimum additional legal tools. And, nobody ever told me. They just killed the bill. Right. Now, we're in the home stretch now, obviously, Comptroller Peter Franchot. What is your advice to Marylanders to best protect themselves from this sort of fraud? Well, be very careful and keep your elbows up. You're responsible for your own tax return. Most of the returns that will be filed over the next week are folks that owe us money and obviously have, incomes and resources, and, many of them will have accountants. Make sure the accountant signs their tax return and uses their ID, and make sure the refund goes back to you and not to the accountant somehow. And just be very, very careful. It's the Wild West out there. Everybody is stealing everything in sight, and you just have to be on guard about your own financial identity. No one's going to look out for you other than yourself.
I appreciate you coming on today and telling us this. When I heard this story and the fact that it wasn't going to cost billions of dollars, it wasn't going to cost the government anything to give you the power to investigate and go after these criminals stealing people's IDs and trying to steal their tax returns, and to not get that through.
Derek, I guess what I heard was they were sending a message to me. They don't like the fact that I work fairly well with Governor Hogan or something like that. They have some grievance, but they didn't hurt me at all.
Right.
They just hurt the taxpayers and the general fund. Boy, it's a real odd strategy if they're trying to send a message to me.
So a year of Marylanders at risk for petty partisan politics. Comptroller Peter Franchot, I appreciate you and your willingness to speak out against this and keep that software up to date.
Derek, all the